do we have a problem that needs to be solved by AI?
Mhm.
And I think that a lot of the cases that are being shoved on us are not actually problems that any of us have. So, I am not really struggling to write letters to my Olympic heroes, and I'm happy to continue to do that by myself. I actually think that we have plenty of creative people writing all sorts of things and doing fine. And now these sort of tools are being, sold to them, right? These are not free for the most part, being sold to them as solutions to a problem. And I think that when we get to writing in particular, they're being sold so successfully because people are so traumatized by their relationships with writing. You actually just need to give better assignments.
Mm.
Right? I mean, instead of policing people, give better assignments, help them understand why and how you need them to use writing here instead of wasting your time. I would stop policing and start teaching, right? Yes, there are people who will cheat, but what we need to be doing is designing better and more engaging learning environments, which is not the question you asked me, but
Well,
it's
that's actually where I did hope you would go. Actually,
okay.
this is exactly what I wanted to hear. All right, everybody, welcome back to The Rise. I am thrilled to introduce our incredible guest today. And this is going to be an important conversation, potentially a little bit of a confronting conversation, because we are here with the incredible Elizabeth Wardle, and we're going to get into the costs, the potential costs and the potential benefits of AI as it relates to writers, academic pursuits, literary pursuits. We're going to get into all of it today. So I want to tell you a little bit about Elizabeth before we officially welcome her to the show. Elizabeth Wardle is a University Distinguished Professor, Roger and Joyce Howe Distinguished Professor of Written Communication, and Director of the Howe Center for Writing Excellence at Miami University in Ohio. She is a proud alumni of the University of Louisville, where she earned a BA in philosophy and an MA in English, and Iowa State University, where she earned a PhD in rhetoric and professional communication. And of course, Iowa being a hotbed of the literary world in the MFA programs as well. She's the co-author of numerous books and articles about writing, including Writing About Writing, so very meta, right? A first-year composition textbook that is now used at over 400 colleges and universities in the United States and Canada. Naming What We Know, Threshold Concepts of Writing Studies, which I am currently reading. And her newest book is going to be coming out this September, 2025, called Writing Rediscovered. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. It is a timely book, an important book that we all need to read for exactly the reasons we're going to discuss today. So first of all, Elizabeth, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, you and I met, we were introduced through a mutual friend and colleague, and started, as it seems like every conversation these days, ended up talking about AI. And you have a unique vantage point, being someone who is teaching young minds as well as graduates. You are working with colleagues. You are involved in people of multi different generations as we encounter this new era of AI. And I just want us to just get into it as if it's just the two of us. We're sort of going to take you all into Elizabeth and I, just having a conversation about this, because there's so much to consider, right? There's the whole, AI isn't going away. People are going to use it. But let's start, first of all, Elizabeth, with what you're seeing in the landscape. Like, how are you seeing the effects of AI showing up in the academic world? Let's start there, and then we'll talk about sort of books and publishing as well.
Sure, yeah. Well, whether we want to ignore it or not, it is here for us in higher ed. A couple of years ago, when ChatGPT came on the scene, we had to transform. In the center that I lead, we had to transform really overnight in thinking about how we support faculty in their teaching, because students immediately started using it, and faculty immediately started struggling with what that meant for them. I like to say that faculty had to keep doing their full-time job and then try to learn something new on top of that, which is, AI and what it does for writing. But I will say that from my vantage point as a person who studies writing and supports faculty in teaching writing, I really thought it was a new opportunity for everybody to rethink what we are doing with writing in school, which is the thing I would love to talk to you about today.
That's what we get to talk about, because this is for all of us, right? It is the easy fun. I watched a training last week, a master class where someone said, human beings at this stage will do anything for convenience. I mean, truly, we will sort of sell our souls for the thing that just makes something easier, faster, whatever. And that's like, there's many things about that when it's ordering food or getting groceries delivered, or, there's all kinds of things that are great about that. So we can spend our time doing other things. But when we start to, relegate and delegate the thinking that comes with writing, right, Elizabeth, which is what we're going to get into, how to craft something, how to have put a thoughtful argument or thesis together, how to communicate. When we stop using that skill by letting AI write, whether it's, I've heard people using it for everything from legal documents to, reviews of their employees, so they don't have to do, reviews anymore. Obviously, people are trying to pass off term papers and writing whole books. That's the big movement. Just write your book in an hour with AI, right? And so let's talk, like, take us in where we need to. Let's cut right to the heart of what's going on here.
Well, I think in order to cut to the heart of where we are, we need to actually think about what writing is and why we use it. So what I like to get people to do is think about all the ways that they maybe misunderstand what writing is. And I think this is a sort of a consequence of the culture that we live in, where writing has really been turned into a product you can be tested on, right? So anyone who has suffered through, high school English classes, all of the standardized testing, has really gotten the idea that writing is about producing a perfect product. And if that's what we think that writing is, then yeah, go for it. AI can do that for you. Maybe, although it might look perfect, it really is not. But so I think that part of what we need to do is go back and ask ourselves what writing actually is and why we really use it. And I think that that can help us sort of temper our approach to and relationship with AI. So yeah, go ahead, ask me
No,
your
go. Keep going. I'm
yeah.
nodding in agreement. Like,
Okay. So I think that, where I usually start with people is say, what are you doing with writing? In your daily life, what are you actually doing with writing? And so getting people to recognize all of the ways that writing is what I like to say, mediating activity for you as you go through your day, all day, every day. The things that you want to get done are getting done often by writing, forms of writing. So you need to go get groceries, you make a grocery list. Your list is mediating your shopping. When you were inviting me for the podcast, we were emailing back and forth. Those emails were mediating our activity so that we ended up here together. And so really what writing is doing for us is helping us get work done in the world and communicate with other people. That's a big piece of it. And I think it's hard to remember that when our relationship with writing was set by school. So, a lot of people will say to me, I'm a terrible writer. I can't use commas right. And, we dig into that, and it's because of the relationship that they had with writing as a result of school. Did you write something correctly? Is it clear? Is it concise? Did you follow this formula? Did you get a good score with the rubric? And so they're sort of traumatized by that often. And then they forget that outside of school, they're using writing all the time to get things done in ways that are really meaningful to them. So the first thing I get people to do is really think about, well, what is writing in your life and what is it doing for you? And if you can start interrogating that and you can get away from thinking about writing as producing a perfect product, then you can start asking yourself, what can AI do for me that's helpful? And where might I want to be careful with how I use it?
Yeah, this is really important because I love us all. So that's an exercise. Everybody, we're a take action group here. You all listening to this and watching this. So inventory your writing for a couple of days. You're texting, you're emailing, you're making lists. A lot of you in our community, right? Thought leaders, we're doing morning pages, which is free writing by hand with pen to process thoughts, to clarify, to purge insecurities and the inner critic, whatever it is that we're using those for. There's so many different ways, right? So once we've inventoried, as Elizabeth is instructing us to do, then we can see that there's a bigger picture, not just an article I'm presenting or a book chapter that I'm penning or whatever it might be. So then, Elizabeth, once we identify, okay, what do you use AI for, or if you use it at all, like, or what do you think is a healthy, this is your opinion. So our audience wants to know what are the healthy things, and I can certainly share my list of where AI from a writing perspective could be useful.
Well, before I answer that question, I'd love to go back to the activity you just gave to your listeners,
Okay.
because I would like to invite them to do a second thing.
Oh,
So
let's do it.
once they make their list, and really I would urge them when they're making their list, don't limit yourself. People often leave out the humble genres, right?
Mhm.
The sorts of things that they think that doesn't count. My high school English teacher would have said that doesn't count. So put everything on there, even the text messages to your kids.
Mhm.
And then I would love for you to ask yourself, go through each one and ask, what is this doing? And what makes this kind of writing good? I think this is hugely important for people when they're sort of digging around in what is writing and why am I doing it, and what makes it good. Then you can get your English teacher's voice out of your head. And so if you think about, I love to talk about grocery lists. I think it's a fantastic example, but if you think about the grocery list, well, what makes your grocery list good? And people have different answers for this. I talk about this at length in my book, but some people, it's just like, I need to come home with the things that I meant to go for and not get off track. Some people make very complicated lists where it's like, I can get it cheaper if I do this, or they have it organized by, whatever their meal is so that throughout the week. But the point is, you need to ask yourself, what am I doing with this kind of writing? And what makes this kind of writing good? How do I know if this kind of writing is good and successful? And
Mhm.
often, of course, the answer is I had a goal in mind for why I was doing this kind of writing in the first place. Did I accomplish the goal? And so then, if you needed to say to someone else, well, here's what makes a grocery list good for me, and what are the typical conventions that make that work? You can start to figure out that the voice in your head from your English teacher is not helping you at all. Because if you wrote your grocery list in full sentences and paragraphs, you could not use it. It would be unfunctional. And so here is an example where what makes it good is if you can actually use it. So phrases, maybe organized by area of the grocery store, right, where you can check it off as you go, then that is what makes it good. And I'd love to go back to the example that you just gave of these, what did you call them? Your morning journal?
Yeah, from Julia Cameron's work, The Artist's Way. It's a book I found years ago, and many people have done versions of. So the idea is 3 pages of uninterrupted, unedited, just getting your junk out. And the idea is that when you clear the channel, if you will, with getting all your gook out in the morning before you sit down to write whatever it is you think is the important writing. So whether that's a sales page email or a chapter of a book or a talk that you're going to give, that you've cleared all the kind of junk and the neuroses sort of out, at least temporarily. That's the
Yeah.
the method
Okay.
behind.
I remember that book. It was my mom had it in her house. So I love that as an example because I think it takes us to this other place that you wanted to go, which is that's a kind of writing that is mediating something very specific for you as an individual. It's helping you clear your mind, get your ideas out, work through whatever your feelings may be. It doesn't need to look any particular way. It's not a product that you are delivering to anyone. If we asked all your listeners, what makes that kind of writing good? I would assume that it's after you've done it, you feel better, you feel more focused, you know what you need to do next. Some things have risen to the surface for you that maybe you didn't recognize before. And so you could write a really interesting explanation of what makes that kind of writing good, but it's mediating something very important for you, and it's doing that with conventions that work for you. And I bet if all of your listeners put theirs side by side, they would look very different.
Very.
All right. So what we're sort of going for here is that there are a lot of cases where writing is actually mediating learning. And if it's not about the final product might get used in a particular way, it may just get put away, but it is mediating learning. And so that I think takes us to AI, which is you really need to think carefully about why you're using writing, what it's doing for you, and whether or not that is a place where you want to bring in another tool to help you. And will that tool help you, or will it actually sort of change the nature of what you're doing in important ways?
So it's so important, right? Because the purpose, and you're having us get to the why. Why are we doing this type of writing? And then what makes it good or effective or useful? And again, none of us would want to delegate our morning pages to AI because the whole point is the process. It's about realizing something, releasing something, clarifying something. It's a thought process. I mean, I just throw mine away. I don't ever keep them. It's not something I would enjoy revisiting. It's usually a bunch of but I noticed a difference that I've been doing it for almost 20 years. And I've taken a break, like a couple months just to, I was like, oh, is this important? And it's almost incredible. It's almost like if you started drinking water and experiencing hydration and then stopped drinking more water, is very palpable for me. And everyone has their own experience, can be effective or not effective. So I love what you're getting us to think, like that's not something, right, that we would want to turn over. The other thing, you and I jokingly, like a lot of the world, I had a huge reaction to the Gemini commercial at the Olympics and the Summer Olympic Games that created a lot of outrage amongst many people. And it was, a father having AI write a thank you letter from his daughter, to her sports hero. What we think about, what's the purpose of that writing? The purpose, if this child of her own volition wanted to connect with her shiro, or her, someone who she admired and that was inspirational, having a computer figure out, the feeling and, that exercise really wasn't for the athlete, the
Right.
star Olympic athlete. It was for the child to probably have some courage. I'm just making this up, but I would think like
Right.
courage to say, I could send something to someone famous and inspiring, identifying with the qualities, of that human being that are aspirational inside that child. Like there's a whole process that would create that this kid would miss out on completely, which is why so many people just were, screaming online, including myself, and ranting about it, because what a horrible way to use AI for writing in my and others' opinions. So this is crucially important. Why are we writing? What purpose is it serving? What makes it good, effective for us? There's a lot of things we wouldn't want to let go of.
Right. And in that example, really that form of writing is about connecting with another human being. And I think that's why people were so outraged, is because you're sort of outsourcing human connection to a machine. It seems like a bad idea.
Right.
And
That was something
also
that would
why,
take this kid a few minutes to do,
yeah,
like
yeah.
this kid's out in the salt mine. What is the save here? What is she could have less time on her video game. I mean, I'm saying this as a mother of a 14-year-old right now. So yeah, this is so important. And let's think about, well, maybe you don't want to go here yet, but you tell me, if we there's a philosophy in the addiction recovery world, if anyone's familiar with 12-step programs like Alcoholics Anonymous, and there's a technique when people are recovering from addiction called play it through to the hangover. So the idea is to, like, the addict will kind of be in the, oh, wouldn't this be so great, I can go out and feel good and party and this will be so fun. But then it's like, okay, we'll play that through to the hangover. Oh, I've blacked out. I've lost all my money. I'm going to lose my marriage. I'm potentially in physical danger because I'm in some, you play that through to the hangover. It's not such a exciting proposition anymore. And I think that there's a piece of, for me, about playing the AI through to the hangover, because at a certain point, you and I talked about, AI can only pull from what's been created.
Yeah.
So
By
it,
us.
it,
By
it
us.
by us. So if we stop exercising our creative muscles, our innovation muscles, our writing craft muscles, that's all the AI, like this circles the drain fast. If we play it through real fast, we suddenly are not innovating. Like, what's it pulling from? A bunch of other stuff now that AI has created. Like, that's not a society probably we want down
Yeah.
the road. So that's
Yeah.
the sobering, to keep in this very like tortured analogy that I'm making. But it's a sobering thought, because we can temporarily, it's fun to go party and drink maybe to someone, but not fun to black out and lose your car and lose your family and lose your home. And is that a potential for, what could happen if we really stop writing our own books, our own articles, our own courses, our own poems, our own fill in the blank?
Yeah. Well, I think that I love that analogy, and it's part of why I'm really suggesting that the faculty I work with start teaching AI literacy, not how to use AI, because there's so many questions that we need to be thinking about in order to imagine why we would use AI. And back to your example of Gemini, I think the challenge was there were no humans in the world saying, you know what, I need a solution to this exhausting task of writing to my, Olympic idol. No one was suggesting this is a problem that needed to be solved. This is a for-profit company that was trying to make up reasons why this was a tool that we needed, and they really missed the mark. And so I think that the bigger question that you're trying to get us to answer is, do we have a problem that needs to be solved by AI?
Mhm.
And I think that a lot of the cases that are being shoved on us are not actually problems that any of us have. So, I am not really struggling to write letters to my Olympic heroes, and I'm happy to continue to do that by myself. I actually think that we have plenty of creative people writing all sorts of things and doing fine. And now these sort of tools are being sold to them, right? These are not free for the most part, being sold to them as solutions to a problem. And I think that when we get to writing in particular, they're being sold so successfully because people are so traumatized by their relationships with writing that it is a very easy sell to say, look, it can do this for you. You don't have to suffer through the angst and anxiety of putting pen to paper and, getting criticized and whatever. So I think, to me, the issue is I don't typically spend a lot of time talking about AI, because as soon as we get into any kind of conversation, what happens is that I start saying, well, why are you so worried about that? What's causing you anxiety? What kinds of tools could help you with that? And quite often, it's really about reconnecting and resetting people's relationship with writing and with other writers. I think that we forget or maybe don't know that writing is really social, and that
Mhm.
what we all writers need readers is one of the slogans in our writing center. And that, really what we're doing is suffering alone with these bad ideas about writing that have taken up a lot of space in our heads for a long time. And that before we go spend money on a tool that we may or may not need, we should really reset and rethink about our relationship with writing and with other writers, and that why we're using writing, what support that we need. And then we can make a better decision about whether this is a tool that we need and that helps us, or whether we are accepting a solution from a company that would like to make money off of that tool.
The pharmacy model. Let's create, the big pharma, let's create a disease that doesn't exist and then give the pill for the disease and charge whatever. I mean, it's a tried and true from the pharmaceutical
Yeah.
industry, for years, right? Let's create social anxiety and then cure it with medicine that costs money that you need to be on for the rest of your life, right? So I love this inquiry, right? Because I really enjoy thinking about what are the tasks I hate that don't develop anything in me, that don't, can AI do those tests? Lovely, wonderful. I don't like figuring out, certain things about systems or coding or, different, if AI
Right.
wants to, that's not something that feel I'm on the earth to contribute to. I don't have genius in it. I don't have, so, and I don't, always feel like I'm on a book deadline, as you know, Elizabeth, for the new book. And those of you listening know I'm taking you on the journey, and I'm writing, at least 1,000 words a day. That's what it's going to take to get this project finished per the timeline with the publisher, and sometimes more. And it's not always pretty. Yesterday was really a hot mess, but I know that is important. That it's important for me to figure out what this messy bit that I'm working on really needs to be, right? I don't need, that's for me to do as the author.
Yeah.
Right now, there is still, and let's talk a little bit about what the requirements, because this is the other thing that isn't being discussed by a lot of people suggesting and selling the AI, solution, and whether they're selling courses on how to be good at it and write your book, with it, or whether they're the actual software company itself, that is selling their membership and subscription. So I contribute to Forbes. You've written for a lot of magazines. I know Elizabeth as well. And still when you submit an article right now, there is a box you need to check that this article has not been generated by AI. That is something that is required at the moment, at least at the time of this recording, that is saying, you are checking a box saying that you wrote this, right? Publishers, I mean, yes, if you self-publish on Amazon chat, like KDP, you could just put something up, I'm sure. But if you go through any publisher, you have to sign a legal document that says you wrote your book, right? That is something that is in high schools. I'm sure now it starts in elementary school. I believe there's scanning software the same way there is for plagiarism software, is what I've been hearing from people that's sort of scanning for AI generated content. Could you speak to the I don't know, the parameters that some institutions like publishers, magazines, professors are putting into place? Do you think they're BS? Are they real? What do we need to know?
Well, I think it's the Wild West. I mean, nobody knows what to do. The AI just, checkers are trash. I mean, it's
Okay.
another tool for them to sell us that that it doesn't really work. So at our university, we currently are like, don't use that. You actually just need to give better assignments.
Mm,
Right? I mean, instead of policing people, give better assignments, help them understand why and how you need them to use writing here instead of wasting your time, which in my field, we've said this for years because there was a long period of time where it was like plagiarism checkers, right? Turn it in. And
sure.
everybody had to do that. And we've been saying for a long time, stop policing and start teaching, right? Yes, there are people who will cheat, but what we need to be doing is designing better and more engaging learning environments, which is not the question you asked me, but
Well,
it's
that's actually where I did hope you would go. Actually,
okay.
this is exactly what I wanted to hear, because to your point, someone will always find a way to beat whatever system or software, or like if someone's going to cheat, they're going to cheat, right? So to your point of what if we engaged and actually created assignments, okay, just to go, this is aging myself, but there were like cliff notes. I remember, people would try to not read a book that was assigned and they would read cliff notes or spark notes or these things to sort of,
Yeah.
and I remember teachers always telling us, knock yourself out, because there will not be a single question on these tests that you could answer having done, like they will find the things that are not covered in those cliff notes or spark notes, and that will be what is tested. I love to read, so that wasn't tempting for me, but it was a thing. I know a lot of kids were like, oh, thank God I can just go read the cliff notes. And so to your point, creating a better learning environment where that's not valued, to take that route is a much better answer than hoping, again, some software that someone's selling you for X amount per university to scan.
Yeah, and I think we just have a really big problem in higher ed with, for-profit ed tech. I mean, it has just,
Mm,
um, they've sold us all kinds of things, that I'm not sure we've needed. And I do think we are sort of at a tipping point where we really need to rethink what higher ed is for.
mm,
Because, I see a lot. I just read an article last week. I'm not sure. It might have been in Forbes actually, where someone was like, you know what the answer is? Blue book exams. That is not the answer. Like we don't get to go. I mean, you can try, but I think that the challenge is we are past the point where schooling is about showing me what you memorized.
mm,
That ship has sailed because you know what can do that for us? AI, every Google search that you can do, you can get any fact that you need quickly. And so, really, I think that what we need to be doing is rethinking what we're doing in a classroom and what is a classroom? Why are people in a learning environment in the first place? And I think that we really need to be engaging them in deep learning, right? Not just memorizing, which is shallow, but really thinking about how does this apply? What can I do with it? What problems can I solve in the world? And get them engaged in applying and doing things. And until we can really rethink what our education system is doing, we're always going to be playing catch up and, begging somebody to make a solution for us. And so that's what Turnitin was. That's what the AI plagiarism detectors are. Um,
mm.
and that's what a blue book is. I mean, we need to really think about what are we doing in education at this moment. And, given all the disruption that's going on in the country right now, I do think it's a moment to say, let's rethink what education actually is. But because going back to a blue book is not going to solve the problem that we have.
I love this, Elizabeth. You're just taking us right. It's like, what is writing even for? What are we doing with education? Just some small things,
Just
everybody.
some
I hope
small,
you have
small
some
problems.
strong coffee while you're listening to this episode. Elizabeth, before I know you've got a full day and so many incredible things you're doing with grant writing and other things over the summer. What do you hope we come to when we answer these questions? And this leads us to the new book that's coming out in September. I feel like from the excerpt I got to read early, which is so fantastic. What do you hope, if you were waving the magic wand for our world right now, what do you hope would be our answer to what is writing actually for, and what are we doing with education?
I think that I would love for us to get back to what does it mean to learn and what are we doing with writing for learning. Um, I'd like us to sort of turn off the voices of our high school, red pen
Mm.
on our writing and really start thinking about what do I want to do in the world? How can I do it effectively? What am I learning for? And what am I for teachers? Like, what am I designing a learning environment for? I think that we've been very reactive and very short-sighted. We're thinking about, how to get you to pass the test you're taking tomorrow, or how to get you to prove to me that you read something. And I think that ship has sailed, and that really what we need to all do collectively is step back and say, what is education for? What is writing for? How can we really innovate our use of writing and our use of learning right now? And yeah, you're right. Like, these are big questions, but I think we're at the moment where we kind of don't have a choice because, as you said earlier on, what did you say? It played out to the hangover. Play out AI use to the hangover. I mean, if we continue to do what we're doing, yeah, okay, you're just going to have AI teaching you and tutoring you, and you will not be interacting with a person. And AI is going to get trained on what? I don't know, because we won't be producing anything ourselves. I don't think that's a world we want to live in. And I do want to be clear, I'm not a Luddite. I mean, I am not against tools, but I do think we need to be driving the car, right? I shouldn't just get in the car and let you drive and I have no idea where I'm going. I think we collectively need to think carefully about the tools that we're using, the choices we're making, who is selling us things, and who the experts are who can actually design something that is meaningful. And right now, I think a lot of what's happening in education is getting designed by people who have no expertise in teaching and learning. And I don't think that's who we want driving this car, but it's going to require all of us to demand something different and then participate in creating that solution.
Wow, this is amazing. Everybody, the upcoming book, Writing Rediscovered, is out September 2026. You'll have the link here.
2025.
Oh my goodness. I'm thinking 2026 because my book, oh my God, it's this September, months away. You can actually pre-order, which I have done now. And we have the link here for you with this episode. So you can get Writing Rediscovered by Elizabeth Wardle. Make sure you order this book immediately, get it pre-ordered. So it'll just arrive to you September 2025. And you will be able to carry this conversation forward because, as you said, Elizabeth, it's going to take all of us to truly lead something. We've joked as we finish here about thought leader, right? And the term. Well, if it means anything, this is the time that life has called the question. Being a thought leader, really examining what way we want to lead the thoughts of our future, ourselves, our future generations, our children, our institutions. The question has been called. And Elizabeth, thank God you are here to help us really be a lighthouse in this conversation. So make sure everybody go pre-order the book now. And Elizabeth, we will likely see if we can have you back to continue this conversation because more will obviously continue to be revealed as we journey on and experience this very epic and incredible time in history. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Sarah. I'd love to come back.
Wonderful.
I am beyond honored that you choose to spend your precious time here. And I'm guessing that, like me, you believe everyone deserves to rise. So to keep this content absolutely free to absolutely everyone, I'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe to the show and share this episode with a friend. We'll be the rising tide that raises all ships. Thank you, thank you, thank you.